It's that time of the month again where we get Open Gate Quilts box. Let's open this up. Ooh, I can't wait to see what's inside. Well, let's see. It says that there is a project, some thread, a fat quarter. Oh, and another project. Sorry. You know, I don't read as close to the top, I guess. Let's see. Ooh, that's pretty. What's this? Floral column. Floral column. Oh, okay. Look at that. Stacked squares, it looks like. That's pretty. What else? We got pin cushion. Oh no, bowl fillers. The pin cushions or bowl fillers? I don't know. And this must be the fluff for it. Ooh, that's a pretty fat quarter. Let's open that up and look. That's pretty. It's got butterflies on it. This is called Parasini Snippets from Blank Quilting. I probably pronounced that wrong, which I usually do. Ooh, 2 spools of thread. We've got color 2021, which is white. And then color 2260, I think that says, which is I call this like reddish maroonatang. That's what Scott says. It's funny. The fabric in here is Wildflowers for Moda. And the fabric in here is Elizabeth from Studio E Fabrics, which I'll show you more of as soon as we open it up and do it. So for now, let's get started. Let's take a look at these before we press them. Again, it's Elizabeth Studio E Fabrics. That's pretty. Ooh. Little tiny print. Just a plain white. Oh, look at this one. And then a second one of these. I'm going to assume towards binding because it's full length. All right, the pattern looks not too hard. So I'm going to give it a look over. I'm going to press all my fabrics and let's get started. Okay, it's all pressed. Time to get started. So I'm going to go ahead and just stack these out of the way. This one is towards the binding, so I'm just going to set that completely aside for now. Grab a handy dandy ruler and a rotary cutter. Everything looks to be about straight, and we're going to start with piece 1 on the cutting section. All right, here we go. I'm going to move that one out of the way and grab a ruler that actually has the number we're looking for on it. This one just so happens to have an 1/8 number. It did just tell me to center the strips of the floral, and I didn't do that. I'm just going to leave it like this. I really don't care. Remember when you're cutting to cut between the floral strips. I didn't. So mine won't be exact. I didn't even read that part. I just looked at the number and said, hey, I'm going to cut this. So just watch for that when you're cutting this up. All of my parts and pieces have now been cut. Everything's cut. I didn't cut these correct, like I said, but you know what? I'm not gonna care. I will say though that this has enough for you to cut it. I'm pretty sure we're cutting on these lines, you know, the dashed lines that are in there, you know, equal amounts, so you have an equal amount of flour. But that's okay. I'm not worried. So I have my pieces cut. Let's figure out what we need to do to sew this up. First things first, I'm going to take these squares and use 20 of them. Just going to stack them all right side up. There's 20 of them here. That way it makes it easy for me to chain piece the lot of it all. All right, here we go. We're going to take these right here and these right here. We're going to place this on point. Just slide that stuff out of the way. And we're going to place a whole stack here. We're going to sew them on and then sew this other side. We're going to make 20 of these. There's 20 of these, so we're going to go ahead now and take this to the machine and sew one side on, and then we'll sew the other side on. Here we are at the machine. Again, we're going to sew one side on and then the other side. I'm using white thread and a 2mm stitch length, which is what I usually use when piecing. Well, the white thread, not always, but I'm just literally right sides together, lining up this corner. And I'm going to chain piece all of them through. And then once I get these through, I'm going to press towards the dark for the first pass. All right, so let me sew these up. Now I'm going to press them towards this piece. Once they're pressed this way, I'm going to go ahead. I'll trim this off because I don't like the dog ears and it'll lay just fine the other way. Trim those off and then piece the other side on. I have them sewn. I've trimmed off that end piece. And now I'm going to sew the other side on. So I'm just going to take this and lay it in this corner right here. And it's going to cross over 1/4 of an inch. So it's going to cross over about 1/4 of an inch on that side. And then your needle should come down in that V. And sew them on. So the corner goes there. Lay it on. Sew it. Corner gets lined up. Sew it. Corner. Line it up. Sew it. Rinse and repeat. When I'm done, I'm going to press towards the white or towards the piece I just added. So I'm going to sew these up. These are now sewn up. They do have a dog ear. You can go ahead and cut that off now or wait to trim it. It's no big deal. Next step is we're going to take these, and this and we're going to create some rows with these, this, and this. So follow your directions. I'm going to start with one of these, one of those, one of these, one of those. Then we're going to make another row. So that's one row, that's the end. Just gonna move these this way. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. So here's one row, 2 rows. Then your next row is this, and that. Oops, wrong way. Pay attention to the direction. The next row is this, and that. Make sure you follow the diagram. This, and one of these. Move all that out of my way momentarily. Keep my rows sort of separate, but closer together just because I need the room right here. Next row. One more. And one on this side, and then I'm going to end it with one of these down there, I think. Doesn't get that. It gets, where's it at? Right here. These. Obviously you can't see over here, but it ends the way it started. And then I'm just going to repeat. And then these are my ends, 2 for this side and 2 for this side. All right, so I'm going to sew my rows. I'm going to sew this row, and I'm going to line the ends up right here. Then this row, I'll put that one on at that corner, and this one will line up with this corner. Then the next row, this one will line up with this corner. This one will line up with the other one. There's going to be a hangover. I'm going to trim those off. So we're going to go and start. I'm just going to start bringing a section to the sewing machine. I will sew it on, press the way it says to press in the pattern. Sew it on, press the way it says to press. It's probably going to be towards these, pressing towards the big piece, because that's about how I would see it done. That way it's opposite corners when you start nesting things together, because it'll be towards this. When you hook this piece to here, then this one will be pressed towards that, if that makes any sense to you. All right, here we go. I've sewn that on. I'm going to press it towards the big piece. Right now, just with my finger. Then I'm going to center this on here. So you could fold it to find the center if you need, like this. Fold it, line it up, make a little crease. See that crease? It holds. Fold this in half. Make a little crease. Line those 2 creases up. Hold it. Sew it on. I'm going to go ahead and press that towards the big piece. I'm going to take it to the iron real quick, and I'm going to press it. I'm going to trim off the dog ears and then add this piece on the end. So it's pressed. I'm going to snip off that dog ear because it's not needed. This one and this one. I'm going to go ahead and fold the square in half to get my center. I'm just going to line those 2 seams up, hold it, put a crease, Once that's creased, which you can see, I'm going to crease this piece. And I'm going to attach, line that up, and attach it to this end. And then I'm going to go ahead and just press that out. This should be straight, and this should be straight. Once that corner is done, it looks like this. And now I'm just going to chain piece all this top parts first, then I'll come back and chain piece all the bottoms onto them. So if it was sitting like this over there, and there's another piece that goes here and another piece that goes on this far side right here, I'm going to take all these top parts first and get them all done. I'm going to do both rows simultaneously. So I'm just going to put this on here, line it up, sew it through, grab the next one, sew it through. Next one, I'm not going to worry about the end cap one. Just going to do only these first. Once they're all sewn, I'm going to take them over to the iron and press everything towards the big piece. So I'm going to press it all towards the big piece. And then I'll add the opposite side. So here the pieces are. The next one goes on this side. So I'm going to sit these over here, grab just one. I adjusted it so you could see better. Now this one is going to be on the opposite. So we had one on this corner. This one's going to go on the opposite corner. Turn the whole thing. I'm going to do the same thing with all of them. Put this on this corner now. Grab another. Once they are sewn, I'm going to take them over to the iron and press towards the big square. Parts and pieces are made. So I went ahead and cut the dog ears off of this corner and this corner. Then just lay them back in place. And now we just need to make this end cap now the same way that I made this part. We're making this one and this one. So I'm going to go ahead and sew this and this, and then I'll show you how to sew the rows. So this is how this works. Slide this over. This one and this one are going to hook together. You're going to nest this seam right here. So I'm going to put this right sides together, hold it, and you can see they are in opposite direction. Just going to nest that seam, line this end up. It's going to stick over about a 1/4 inch right here, and it's also going to stick over about a 1/4 inch down here. So I'm going to line it up and go sew. Once sewn, I'm going to press it towards the one I just added. Now, repeat. This matches this seam. Line it up. The seams are in opposite directions. Nest it, pin it, whatever you want to do. Opposite directions. I'm just going to hold that seam. I line it up, hold it, take it to the machine, and sew. Once sewn, press towards the piece I just added. Next, repeat that same process all the way to the end. So you're literally just nesting these. So I'm going to go ahead and finish all this up, and then we'll move on to the next step. Now that they're together, I do want to caution you. This is the most stretchiest right now. So once you iron it flat, use some steam, keep it flat. I'm going to repress this now that I stretched it to show you. Keeping it flat. And then we're going to find that number that's on the thing, and we're going to cut this to what the directions say. So I'm going to press this real quick because, again, see how easy that stretches? So you're going to have to be very, very careful when you are cutting and sewing this.
there is a number that is on your directions that you were going to cut this to. I am going to find the half number of that number and line up that point with these lines right here where these points come together, and then we're going to trim the sides off. Now you do want to make sure when you press this that you're trying to keep it straight. It looks like this one's a little off, so I'm going to stretch it a little bit. It needs to be brought back that way. So I'm going to, there we go. That looks about straight. I'm going to go ahead now and cut these. Next step is to take these strips and we're going to put them on either side or both sides. I don't know how to say that properly. On each side, here we go, of this. They're exactly the same size, so we're going to try not to stretch and pull. I'm going to do that same procedure on this one. They were cut to size. Right there, just like that. And then I think it comes from this because there's two pieces here. All right, so that is okay. For now, we're just going to work on each side of this, each side of this. I'm going to go ahead and very carefully sew this on here. I'm going to go ahead and press towards the piece I just added, but before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and just sew this one on here. And remember, it stretches, so if you want to pin this in place first, go ahead and do that. I do not. I start it, then I go to the end and line up the end and just hold it until it's fully sewn. I'm going to go ahead and repeat with this one. Now that they are sewn, I'm going to go ahead and press towards the piece that I just added. They are nice and pressed. So now I'm going to go ahead and stack this to the side and take one of these and cut it to the number that this is, or this, real quick. And I'm just going to use this one as the example piece. Just going to line it up, stack them nicely on top, and cut. Then this, I'm going to hook to this in case I need it for my two sides. So this will get hooked on that one. For now, separate that. I'm going to go ahead and check out these. Move over pieces. Thank you. Let's see what we got going on here. Since I didn't cut mine like it says to do, I'm going to make this an outer piece. Then I'll make this one an outer piece. And I think I'm going to cut a new center because I have a little bit left over. Yep, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut this so that it's a little bit better and the outer edges will be fine. So let me just separate that for a second. I'm going to cut this. It should be center now. Lay this back out. Place that there. Place this here. And then this one, now that it's been recut, there's a little bit more center. I mean, it's not fully center, but it's better than it was. Pretty sure, yeah. That's a lot better. This one was off, which is fine. All right, so now I'm just going to go ahead and sew this into the middle, and then these two ends on, which are the same size. I didn't cut this one a size yet. Hold on. Let's line that up. Hold it. Come to this end and cut it to size. I'm going to start by sewing this on, and then I'll sew this one on, and then once we have all these sewn on, we're just going to add our two pieces on the ends. Okay, so on this end and then on that end, and then we'll do our sides. But for now, I'm not worried about those. I'm just going to get this put together first. So this should be the exact same size now. I'm going to go ahead and sew this on. I'm going to go ahead and press this towards the red. All right, once this is on, I'm going to go ahead and put this one on the other side now. I'm going to go ahead now and press it towards the red. Now I'm just going to add these two ends on. I'm going to press again towards the red. And after I add these, I'll add the next reds to that end and then press towards it. And then this should be done. Once it looks like this, we're going to add our sides, which is what this is for. Go ahead. Oops. Move this stuff out of the way. I'm going to sew one side on. I'm going to just cut it to size, and then it looks like, you know what? It just needs to be cut in half. And if you need this extra piece, there is room for that. I'm literally just going to snip this in half. All right. So I'm going to sew one onto this side, one onto the other side, press towards what I just added, and that will be it. Here it is. My middle is kind of wrinkly. I don't know, maybe that this fabric stretched this too much or whatever. It was cut the right size. All right, so this is this. I have a client quilt on the long arm at the moment. So as soon as I get that done, maybe I'll get this loaded before I need to edit this video and put it out there on the YouTube world. So let me see what that second project is real quick. We'll set this aside to get it ready for the long arm to be quilted. And then maybe you'll see this finished in the end of the video. If not, it's no big deal. All right, so I'm going to set this aside and let's look at that second project real quick. All right, so the second one is little bowl fillers. They make little flowers. Due to the fact that I really don't need anything like this, I'm going to put these squares into my stash, the buttons into my button bin, and I'm just going to skip this one. But if you really want to do it, it seems to be very easy. There's a template you draw on here and you make all three of these because it looks like all the fabrics are there. But I am going to just skip on that because this is not my thing. And it's not going to be everybody's thing, but the squares will go great in my stash. So I'm going to move on to attempting to get that topper quilted. here it is, finished, all done. If you didn't notice while I was binding, when I trimmed the quilt, I actually trimmed about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the 1-inch strip that was put around here. So I trimmed 1/8 of an inch away from it so you could see my batting all the way around. That allowed me to get a nice edge grab without losing too much of that border, or else it would have just looked really skinny if I would have trimmed it to size because of the binding folding over. So when you do stuff like this and it ends with a really skinny edge, I suggest cutting 1/8 of an inch away from the edge when you trim your quilt after quilting it. That way you have plenty of space for your binding to connect to. It's still going to cover it. It just will look a little bit wider and it won't look so, well, shrunk down, honestly, is what it would have been. It would have landed about right here and you would have only saw 1/4 of that. So trim wisely, and this is the result. I quilted it in a meander leaf. Leaf meander. So it's meandered, but with leaves, which you saw. Here's what the back looks like. It's a paisley print on the back. It's hard to tell because it's almost tone on tone. Let's take a closer look. So that's the quilting, as you can see. It's a leaf, but it's a meander. There's both sides. You can see that it's a tone on tone paisley. It's kind of hard to see that. And then there is the front up close. You can see leaves all in it. So I'm sorry I didn't do project number 2. Like I said, this just isn't my thing. And I'm not going to lie and say that everybody's going to love this, because they're not. Not everybody is going to love what comes in the boxes. Now, the projects, on the other hand, I love every single one of them. Some of them aren't even my colorway, but then I love it. I don't know why. But a lot of the second projects, I really don't need them. And I don't decorate like this kind of stuff. I know a lot of people do, but some people, this is some people's jam, and this is others not. So I'm on the others not list. Sorry about that. But the directions are here, and I'm pretty sure it's pretty easy to follow along and stuff them and do this little project. Other than that, this table topper looks amazing. I love it. I love the technique used to put it together. It just turned out so great. And you know, you can't even tell I screwed up and made the cuts wrong on this. It looks like it's supposed to. I mean, it's an equal amount on both ends with this. I mean, it turned out great, and you don't even notice. So there's that. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. See you in the next one.